my state senator actually got back to me. I made a call to them or to him really. I made a call to my state senator saying, hey, I need you to call on Cuomo to resign. And it looks like he got a lot of calls because I got a call from his office basically saying he is joining the Senate delegation and the majority of the New York congressional delegation, calling for Cuomo's resignation and impeachment based on the evidence presented and the overwhelming volume of credible accusations against him, right? So, it seems like it's happening. I imagine what will happen is the investigation will happen. Impeachment is probably going to look fairly likely. It's looking more and more like Cuomo's going to get impeached. And if and when it's clear that he is going to get impeached, he'll choose to resign. But he is rapidly running out of allies in government. And the question is, does he play scorched earth and basically just try to keep power for as long as he can, which would be totally within his character, and actively sabotage the Democratic Party as a result, which, his behavior has never demonstrated that he has any interest in that he does not have the best interest of the Democratic Party at heart, let alone his constituents. Will he do that, or will he, protect what little is left of his reputation and just say, he can make up some face-saving BS, right? He can literally say I still maintain my innocence in the face of certain accusations. I never sexually harassed anyone, but it's impossible for me to govern given the volume of allegations against me, and it's clear that I have been deprived of the trust of my political allies, and so I'm going to step aside and let Kathy Hochul try and affect my agenda and, try and take credit for the stuff that she does. But the truth is that Andrew Cuomo has been extremely toxic for Democratic politics in New York. Including heavily, but not limited to, his immense complacency when a group of New York State Senate Democrats under his gubernatorial regime decided to form an independent Democratic Caucus, basically like a Gang of Eight, but for the New York State Senate. At the peak of their power, what these people wound up doing was they formed a coalition with Republicans because they found out, actually, we're a bunch of social conservatives who disagree with gay rights in the most socially progressive state on the East Coast. We're probably more likely to get our agenda passed by just voting with Republicans. So effectively, these were a bunch of dinos who decided to coalesce with Republicans. And when Andrew Cuomo was asked, as the leader of your state's party, why didn't you intervene? He said, it's not the governor's business to get involved in the state legislature. There's such a thing as separation of powers, which on the surface sounds like a compelling argument, but it kind of breaks apart given the fact that this is a guy who has routinely had political allies of his and members of his own administration go out and intimidate state assembly people who dared criticize him in public. So I don't think that Andrew Cuomo actually believes in the separation of powers. I think he was just politically expedient with the Independent Democratic Caucus because they took a lot of the responsibility for him to affect a progressive agenda for a progressive state off of his plate. And so as the leader of his party, he decided, I'd rather not discipline literal Republicans in our ranks and excise them, but rather what I do is I'd rather let them operate unimpeded because they reduce my responsibility to my constituents. Because when you have people on your right flank, it suddenly becomes a lot easier not to do anything because you can just point to this group of people hey, look at all these centrists preventing me from getting stuff done. It's important to note that the Independent Democratic Caucus was disbanded after the 2018 midterm primaries, in which they were the centerpiece of Cynthia Nixon's campaign, where she accused Andrew Cuomo of abdicating his responsibility to the Democratic Party by allowing the the Independent Democratic Caucus to form and operate unimpeded without any discipline from Cuomo, who was the head of the Democratic Party and the head of the Governors Association even then. So, even then, the primary challenges to Cuomo were making significant headway in undoing a lot of the damage that he allowed to happen right under his nose. Because in the midst of that primary, he engaged in historically unprecedented negotiations with the IDC, in which he got them to disband officially after 7 years of operating pretty much unimpeded. So this is not a friend to Democrats, right? And this is a person who has only ever like accomplished anything for the progressive agenda in New York, and let alone that, who's only ever fought to keep the Democratic Party at the Democratic Party when significant primary pressure threatened his power, right? This is exactly the kind of guy that you want to get out of office and that you work with purely because he's the only person there. And at the end of the day, like, I would probably vote for Andrew Cuomo over Mark Molinaro again, right? Almost definitely. Mainly because Mark Molinaro is a little iffy on Roe v. Wade, and he's he has a couple of extremely regressive Republican views, such as extremely pro-tax cut. Sorry, I'll be right back. So, like, at the end of the day, like, giving Republicans power in the New York state government, probably not worth getting Andrew Cuomo out of office. But the chance of that happening is so astronomically low if we just get Cuomo out of the governor's seat. The whole purpose of keeping him in power right now is in the hopes that the investigation won't give enough definitive evidence, as has happened anytime a powerful white man is investigated of anything. There's not enough definitive evidence to just throw the guy out with the bathwater. And I think the hope is literally that he will stay in place long enough to contend for the Democratic nomination and have a loyal enough base to kind of strong-arm him through and maintain power. And then by the time the general comes, people like me will be forced to vote for him because ultimately we don't want New York City's taxes getting slashed. Because at the end of the day, states have to balance their budgets. So if New York City's taxes get slashed, that means that state Medicaid gets gutted as well. That means that EBT gets gutted. That means that social programs 100% will get gutted because tax cuts have to be offset with spending cuts. Which I think... I'm trying to think if that's the case with federal government. I forgot exactly how PAYGO works, but I do know that... I think PAYGO is about the budget, though. I think tax cuts are always part of the budget. So, yeah, I don't know the ins and outs of federal legislative procedure, but I get a feeling that even at the federal level, tax cuts do have to be offset by spending cuts because of PAYGO. PAYGO is basically a procedural amendment in Congress that says that certain that all non-discretionary government spending has to be net neutral or positive for the American budget, for the U.S. budget. So all spending has to be paid for in taxes, and all tax cuts have to be paid for by... Sorry. All spending or tax cuts have to be paid for by other revenues or other spending cuts. Or existing surpluses in the budget, right? Thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video and would like to see more content, the best thing you can do to support the channel is to click like and subscribe for notifications on future videos. I stream to Twitch more regularly than I upload to YouTube, so come through to twitch.tv/fantastic93 to participate in the chat. Otherwise, stay tuned for future videos. Have a great day.